All right. All right. Well, I have a cup of coffee. I've got my camera recording, and as we've all come to learn, this is not a good sign, is it? Anytime I'm in the chair at home, we're talking about something not so awesome, right? I know most of you are probably expecting a gym therapy today. Or anyone who follows me on Insta knows that I was going to post a video today. However, I knew it wasn't going to be a normal video. The reason for that is, and you're going to see some cats and maybe my dog run around. They're very happy that I'm home. I haven't been home all day. I wasn't really home much of yesterday or the day before. Look at Kiyoshi right there. And this is Luther taking up the camera. Um, I wasn't home much yesterday, and I haven't been able to record like I really would have because some things are happening in my life. But what I want to talk about today is forgiveness. I want to talk about forgiveness because it's something that a lot of people aren't willing to do, or they'll say that they forgive people. They'll say that, they want to move on from things, but they never really do. My father was not a good man by any means to me. And I watched him yesterday in the hospital, right beside his bed, as he is taking his last breaths. He hasn't passed yet. Maybe by the time I record this video, maybe it's tomorrow, but the doctors have said that he has sub 5 days. And I stood over that hospital bed and I had listened to my family in the hospital room talk about him, talk about his life, talk about the things that he's done, and it was all his mistakes. It was all his failures, everything that they could. I don't think they're necessarily dragging him down, but it was just generally next to a man struggling to breathe, kind of ripping into him. And once everyone left and I had a moment alone, just he and I didn't have anything negative to say. My life was very hard because of my father. I think in a lot of ways I was damaged by the way that I was treated. Right? My ability to love others, form relationships, maintain relationships, trusting people at face value, because he did a lot of manipulating. If he did something that slighted you, it was other people's fault. He'd make up a lie. And that's, I've touched on the physical abuse in my very first video, and I really don't need to beat a dead horse. If any of you have seen it, you kind of get it. If you want more context, I recommend going see that video. But the point is, he did not live a virtuous life. But as I stood over the bed and I looked at him, he's a person. He's not a monster. Did he make bad decisions? Did he hurt me and those around him? Yes, undoubtedly. Was he the worst person to ever walk the earth? Also, undoubtedly, no. And maybe it's because I am relentlessly positive, and maybe it's because of my mindset going forward into life. I didn't think it was right to say disparaging things to a man who is living his last couple of days. He was unresponsive for several hours. Once everyone left, ironically, when I go over to the side of the bed and I decide to try and have a few words, I don't know if it's a miracle. I don't know if it's God. I don't know if it was him kind of rousing out of his medicated slumber or whatever it was, but he hadn't talked to anyone in a day. And sure enough, when I start talking to him, his eyes kind of blink open. There's a look of recognition, and he actually starts kind of mumbling words. And it was very hard to understand the things that he was saying, but in that moment, as I previously kind of alluded to, as silly as this sounds, I told him he was a good father. I told him that I would not be the person I am today without him. I told him that I know he did his best. I wish things could have been different between him and I. It's sad that I don't have any memories, positive or negative, after I moved out of the house at about 18. He's unable to move, really. He's a quadriplegic, and with the kind of failings of his internal organs, he's not really able to emote very well either, but I could see tears welling up in his eyes. That kind of made me sad because he might not have been a good dad, a great dad, any of those things, but he was still my dad. And he's a person, and I think seeing anyone in that state would make me feel some kind of way, because it is tragic. Death is tragic, I would argue. But I lied to him a little bit, perhaps, telling him he did a good job, but I can't help but think that is what is the right thing to do. I wouldn't want, and I feel like I've lived a fairly virtuous life, so I don't imagine anyone would be saying negative things about me if I were dying, but I just don't think it's right. He's scared. He can't move. He's trapped in his own body with his own thoughts, heavily medicated. And the people who have not seen him in months and years are finally there to see him, and all they have to do is say negative things. I just don't think that's right. I also don't think that that's good for anyone. My sister was very upset. She was kind of angry, crying. She wanted to lay into him about the past and all these things, like it would give her some kind of closure. And I stopped her. I pulled her aside and I said, I understand that you're upset. I'm upset. I was right there with you. In a lot of ways, I had it worse, but you don't see me sitting here being negative, because it's not going to do you any good, and it's not going to do him. Because one day in 10 or 15 years, you're going to regret spending your last moments with your father and making them negative. For you. And that's outside of consoling someone who is not long for the world. And she softened up a bit. He said a few things. Well, what I could definitely make out was he said that he loved us. I returned the sentiment, of course, even if I'm not entirely sure it's true. He asked why I didn't visit him, why I didn't come around. And a lot of people will say that it's not my job to create a connection with the man once I've become an adult, given the past. But I'm not going to lie about him. He tried calling. He tried texting. At one point, he even tried sending an email. And I just never responded. And when he asked me that question, little bro's about to jump on my shoulder, so I have to stop him. Oh, his name for right now is little bro. We haven't really got him a name quite yet, but we're workshopping a couple of things. So let me put him down. When I answered his question, I said I didn't know how. And I think that's as close to the truth as I can get without opening a whole can of beans that nobody really wants opened in that situation. Because I forgave him. I forgave him a long time ago, truthfully. I don't really hold any resentment in my heart. I don't think about him past the moments that pop up in my head that I can't forget, if that makes sense. But I don't dwell on it. I don't let it control me. As far as I'm concerned, it is genuinely the past. I didn't need to work through anything. All I wanted to do was hopefully ease his mind and help him get to whatever comes next as peacefully as possible. I think it's important in these final moments when you're facing a family member, and significant other, a child, whatever it might be, to leave your grievances behind you. If you can't learn to let go of the past, then it's always going to haunt you. And I could have stood over that bed and I could have said mean things, and I could have said, you deserve this because of the life you live, the drugs, the alcohol, all that kind of stuff. But what does that serve? To continue to fan a flame of anger and hate that really rightly should be put out? I don't think anyone should live that way. And I know that some of my family members just, I don't want to say thrive on negativity, but they really don't like to let it go, I feel like. And I'm not the arbiter of how you should act or how you shouldn't act, but I guess I just want to give my anecdotal experience. I have as much reason to resent this man, as much reason to hate him, as much reason to just be an asshole as anyone else who's ever known him. And I sat there and I chose love. Because as long as we choose otherwise, hate, anger, we're just continuing the cycle that we were brought up in. I would be no better than he was when I was a kid. A defenseless man, sitting in a bed, just there for me to mentally abuse. I really do feel good about my choice, and I hope that my sister can come to understand why I talked her off the edge. And my family might not understand why I'm so gung-ho about forgiving, but I have a couple of goals in life. But the one most basic goal is to make everybody's life I touch, in whatever way it does touch them, better. I'd like to think that anyone I ever interact with only has positive things to say with the way that I interacted with them. I want to live a complimentary life. I want to try and live a life that is full of love, even if I'm not always sure what that looks like. I'm not really sad that he's dying. I'm sad for what could have been. I'm sad that I'll never have a father to stand in my wedding. I'm sad that my grandkids potentially will never have a grandpa. I'm sad that we were never able to make any memories past the painful ones when I was a kid. This is tough. But I'm happy that the last memory that I will have with him was positive. The last thing I ever said to him, even if I'm not sure it's true, was that I loved him. And I hope that he can forgive himself for his mistakes, and I hope that when he passes, it is peaceful. Because like I said in my last video, I will give people love even if it is not always reciprocated. Because that's what we all should do. So, I will see all of you on the next episode of Gym Therapy. I'm not sure when this week that will be, because there are some things going on in my life. So until I see you guys, I hope that you're all having a wonderful week, and I hope that you all can choose love.